Shipping is defined in fandom spaces as the romantic pairing between two or sometimes more characters. This practice has been a staple of the fandom spaces since arguably the beginning of fiction. While most ships will be contained to two or more characters within one franchise, sometimes wild crossovers will happen, but that's not really what we're going to be discussing here today. Today, I'm going to talk about an issue I have with how modern day fandoms treat shipping, and it's not exactly what you might think. Hey there, I'm here to interrupt your regularly scheduled entertainment. So, when it comes to the most popular ships of a franchise, you might notice a reoccurring theme among them, namely that the most popular ships in any major fandom happen to be queer. More specifically, the most popular ship in most major fandoms is a gay ship featuring two men, Spock and Kirk, Dean and Castiel, Naruto and Sasuke. Honestly, the list could go on and on and on and on and on. It's not hard to go to Archive of Our Own and just filter the fanfics you find for your fandom based on the most popular relationship tag and see that most likely it's going to be a ship between two men. Assuming the franchise doesn't revolve around lesbians like Steven Universe, but even then, you might be surprised with just how often female queer ships are gender bent to be male on male instead. Now, I could go on a very long rant and spiel about how this means, blah blah, as a society, that we often seek out romance and fandoms with men on man action, and how it could be fetishizing male queer relationships, or how often that these ships often realize that they're queer themselves. But none of that's about this video. I'm sorry. None of that. Instead, I want to touch on some of the reasons why these ships are popular and why I'm kind of bitter about it. It should come as no surprise that in a lot of shows that have popular man-on-man ships, that usually it's caused by the fact that female characters of the franchise typically have less personalities than a rock in my driveway. It sucks, but a harsh reality of consuming media tends to be that the more nuanced and well-written the men are, the less the female characters need to really exist in the eyes of the original writer or writers. This could tie into thoughts on society as a whole and the overall mistreatment of women, but to keep things more on track, I'm just going to say that it should come as no surprise that we see that a fandom will ship men together if they are the only ones that really form any kind of emotional connection to one another. This is especially bad in shonen type anime and manga, in which the best friends or rival characters are the only ones really engaging with one another for a majority of the series, only for Sasuke to boink Sakura at the end of Naruto. Oh, anyway, I find it especially funny when creators of franchises like this seem surprised to see queer ships of their series, as if they didn't put lipstick on cardboard and think that people would believe that the main character was in love with this girl he hardly seemed to acknowledge through the series. But all of these things I mentioned before is just par the course when it comes to fandoms and shipping, and thusly I am pretty used to all of that, and is not in fact why more modern shipping makes me a little frustrated. Nay, what makes me a little frustrated with modern shipping is that a lot of people seem to have lost the ability to just shrug and move on when their ship isn't canon, as most of these queer ships do not in fact become canon. In the digital age of social media, with creators being more and more accessible by fans, this means that the really bonkers fans are able to harass creators pretty constantly, even if they aren't from the same country or speak the same language. As gross as it is, it's not uncommon to read about how a creator was doxxed, threatened, or mailed inappropriate things because a fan got upset that the franchise wasn't going in the direction that they wanted it to go. And most commonly, I read about this being caused because their ship wasn't canon. It's honestly pretty disgusting how far people will go with their frustrations when they have the apparent ability to remain anonymous through their harassment on the internet. But what exactly about modern shipping has caused people to have such entitlement about how their ships should be treated within a franchise? While I'm not well versed with the big brain psychology behind it, I do have some fandom space thoughts that could be factors on why people have become just such big babies about not being able to move on when they don't get their way. Firstly, tying into the notion that a lot of people who ship queer things end up realizing that they themselves are queer, these hurt feelings when their ships don't end up becoming canon could just be very real, raw, anger at wanting more legitimate representation within the media they consume. While there has been great strides in including more queer representation that doesn't end with either of the pairing just dying, it is still a long way to go, especially in terms of male gay ships. The second thing, and what I believe could be a bigger contributing factor, is the people who make these franchises purposely putting in a lot of queer-baiting material in order to spur on the fans. While creators are more accessible to fans through social media, the same is also true in reverse, in which the ideas of fans are more accessible for the creators to view. If throwing in a two dudes kissing gag will give them more readers or viewers or whatever, a lot of creators might take that route in order to spark engagement with their fan base, and that could easily give people the wrong impression about the franchise. The no homo crowd can get a good chuckle out of the joke, but hopeful fans might believe that their ship could be possible because the creator was willing to put in quote unquote queer content into their series, even if the not very funny nature of the joke is completely lost on them. Rose tinted lenses are, after all, often worn by the desperate. Media comprehension also plays a huge role in how fans have been treating their ships in modern fandom spaces, especially fans of things in different languages. I see this a lot in anime and manga specifically, which fans are very often able to be tricked into thinking there is more queer subtext to something than there really is by someone claiming that they really know Japanese and that certain translations are localized to be more palatable to Western audiences, and how that means that the dialogue was definitely written to be more heteronormative in English than it really was in Japanese. I swear I have a PhD in this, so believe me. If a lot of people are claiming that, oh, trust me, bro, I really speak this language, they probably don't. Anyway, what these types of people tend to miss, though, is that through official translations, these translations, especially nowadays modernly, have to be approved by the original supplier, and often they can't go like too crazy with changing things up just for the sake of localization. We're out of the era of 4Kids dubs changing the entire plotline of a show because they took advantage of their ability to do so. Alternative to the people who believe that they just know better than official translations of a franchise are the people who overanalyze aspects of the artwork or filmography to convince people that their ship is totally real. You see this a lot with people who gasp and point out how frequently characters gaze at one another, or when the two main characters have matching color schemes and splash art. And while these types of theories are fun, I love overanalyzing things, it usually doesn't lead to anything. When it comes to both of these types of my ship is totally real, here's my proof kind of fans, often if you're unfamiliar with a franchise, you could end up believing them because they're just so convinced that they in turn become pretty convincing to people that just are getting into the series, which is a trap I very often fall into. I am one of the many desperate fools who really wants more canon queer representation in my media, but I am also a very chronic skim and spoil kind of person. This is mainly due to wanting to wait for my spouse to watch stuff with me. I end up falling pretty behind in my watch list. Thus, I like to look up just the general what's going on for franchises that I like or that I'm interested in, and that often ends with me seeing a lot of posts of people's ships and all the too convincing arguments people make on why it's real, totally real, and not delusional, hopeful ramblings. However, I'm old enough to know that I shouldn't just trust the words of fandom shippers at their face value, especially right now with fan art becoming so advanced that you can find things that look like actual screenshots from the franchise that you're looking into. And that leads me to my newest fandom frustrations on shipping. I've been wounded through convincing arguments of my ship is canon, it's totally real, way too many times to count, to the point where if I see people discussing a queer ship, I just kind of automatically assume it's strictly within like the fandom, and I don't even bother getting my hopes up, which in turn further delays my consumption of media. So imagine my surprise when I see things that I could have convinced myself was just fandom nonsense, but it actually turned out to be completely canon. Honestly, my world shatters every single time it happens, and I don't know what to do with myself anymore. Do I just continue as normal and assume every queer specific ship I see is just good fun within the fandom, or should I risk my heart like a jaded widow and believe in love again? Since my ship started popping up to be canon on occasion now, I'm more and more conflicted whenever I see someone try to make the too convincing argument on why the ship is going to happen, because damn bitch, nowadays I guess it might. It's both a thrilling sensation and also one full of dread because while I won't say I never felt a little let down my previous ships weren't becoming canon, the fact that now some of them might be canon but don't be canon, it leads my heart to feel a little heavier. But that high you feel when your ship unexpectedly does end up becoming canon, that shit is addicting, which is why I guess I'll keep my mind open and expectations managed to the best of my ability and hope for the best. Tell me in the comments, what ship were you not expecting to become canon that actually did? What are your thoughts on modern day fandom shipping? Do they differ from fandom spaces that you had while growing up? This is specifically targeted at the other adults in my audience, please. Seriously, when I was a kid, people shipped two characters just because they waved at each other once. It was an art form to itself. If you like this video, please leave a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. It really helps me out a lot. This video, like all of my content, is brought to you by Patreon, so thank you so much to Ippo, Alec, Ashley, Mel, and Brandy for subscribing. If you want to support me through Patreon, check out the link in the description. Tiers start as little as $1 a month. It's pretty fun to discuss random fandom stuff, so maybe I'll do that a little more often. Anyway, this is Minji, signing off, until next time.
I can't move on till I let go. I feel so lost, never at home. Need to be strong, every breath hold. 'Cause I can't move on till I let go.